Chava, which is a product of the Lilly Project, and we are very excited about it. We're launching our first version of it for testing in June. So before I start, this is always a question. So do you know anyone? The two questions I always start with is, do you know anyone who died of cervical cancer, or a young woman who had a baby by the age of 16? Do you personally?
I had a friend who had cervical cancer, but luckily survived. And I can't think of anyone I know who died by the age of, who had a child by the age of 16.
So if
19.
These two questions in Nicaragua, Mexico, the countries we're going after, every single girl would raise their hand to both questions.
Wow.
So the issues we're dealing with there is tremendously different than what we've experienced. So just to get you grounded a little bit, and what we're addressing is really the fact that millions of girls do not have the ability to own their own bodies and the decisions about their health. And the issues are even greater in rural communities, which is where the Lilly Project has been operating, where we find that most women that we work with has had a child by the age of, or more than half have had a child by the age of 17.
Wow.
But so the need is tremendous, but what we're also discovering is that there's just a huge opportunity that, especially we started testing this concept with a prototype during the pandemic, and we found that there was just both the level of use of the smartphone is just tremendously. People will have a smartphone, but they may not have running water. So the actual adoption of smartphone technology is advancing above any other, really most other infrastructure developments in the areas that we're focused on. As well as there's a huge interest in particularly among the younger girls that are on TikTok and other social media. They want to start using apps and feel very comfortable that these devices will help them. So the issues that we're focusing on primarily are both important from a systemic perspective as well as a cultural perspective. What we really have to understand is you can't just fix one part of the problem without addressing both. So it's a holistic experience we're trying to create that will address things that are embedded in the cultures as well as within the healthcare system and the education systems. The one that blows me away is always that basically 70% of students do not receive any formal sexual education. And what we like to think about and you might have ability do you guys know what Our Bodies, Ourselves is, that book? Think of us as our bodies, ourselves for the next gen in these countries that never had that. For me, Our Bodies, Ourselves it just blew me away. It transformed my life. When that came out, it was like, oh my God, I can ask questions. I can find out information without having to be embarrassed in front of this male gynecologist. So it's really that kind of thing that we're hoping, and that kind of connection we're hoping to create for these young women.
Is there, maybe I'm jumping the gun here, is there a Our Bodies, Ourselves app that they can use on their smartphones, or is that what you aspire to be?
We're going to be a little different because we'll probably be more closer to what the initial intention was of Our Bodies, Ourselves. It kind of morphed over the years. Their book has been translated, but girls aren't going to read. They're going to consume content in a new way. So we're focusing more on video and other kinds of ways to deliver content that's more relevant to people today. So the app that we're building has three primary components. One is the educational component itself, which is basically focused on topics that they're interested in, and ultimately we'll create it in a way that really engages them through quizzes and through games that will allow people to take in the content but experience it in a different way. But super important is we're also creating this sort of forum community chat concept, which is going to be fully moderated until we really understand what we're getting ourselves into. But it's a way for girls. What we found as we've done research and focus groups is everybody wants to talk about it. If you start a group and ask them who's got the most painful periods, they all raise their hands. They want to explain what happens to them. So we want to create that virtually so they have a way of understanding what's happening with their own bodies, as well as access to individual consultations through WhatsApp, which is a critical ability to start to reach people more directly. So this is designed for the technology behaviors and the lower health literacy of these communities. It's, our target is primarily girls ages 15 to 24 in both rural and urban areas, but obviously the content will be interesting to really all demographics. And the difference of behavior between rural and urban is pretty striking. So we're making sure as we're going out and building the capability is we're incorporating the needs and the wants and the interests of rural girls as well as urban. So the Lily Project is bringing this to market. We are experienced in delivering both sexual health education and care in rural Nicaragua through a direct service model where we deliver through mobile. We have a mobile clinics that travel and provide cervical cancer screening and care, as well as sexual health education. But this is both a wonderful way for us to learn about what the needs are, but also know that we have to be very adaptive to the community, right? That we have to keep really, really centered on what the community needs. And the Lily Project, I am the anomaly in the group because I am, US white educated woman. So I speak for the Lily Project, but I don't look like the Lily Project. The Lily Project are young Latinas, and they are providing the direct care as well as leading the development of the organization. I'm going to skip through that actually, because that doesn't really matter right now. So our efforts are really to focus in on creating change and improving the health, both at the individual level, as well as in the community and society as a whole. It's a pretty big goal that we have, but we're putting metrics in place to ensure that we are able to measure it successfully at all levels. The individual level will be measuring things like the individual, how they do on different quizzes, how many modules are completed. So we'll be able to really measure, are we creating impact at the individual level? At the community, is an area that's really important to us is to be able to create Chava teams, essentially, of ambassadors who become educated through the app, but then they can educate others so that they can become a way for it to start to be spread. Because part of what we're trying to do is help to change the way communities view this kind of concept, right? That they begin to have to lessen the taboo. You need the community to be involved, as well as ultimately the society, because these issues are huge and they've been huge for a long time, but there's very little awareness and understanding and collective effort to really make the kinds of changes that are necessary. Where Lily is today, Chava is today, is right now we're in the development of our MVP for launch on June 1st. And we have a wonderful team that's been volunteering and collaborating and working to develop the MVP. Then we test that in the marketplace. We raise the funds we need to raise to be able to launch a full-blown product. We've been very fortunate to have had the partnership of a app development team pro bono that basically, and they're actually out of Pakistan. One of my favorite stories lately is the fact that we have young engineers from Pakistan, young designers that are learning about their partner's health. So we have these young men learning what a cycle is and how to count the days and that's
great.
And it's just, so they're explaining it back to us. So they're teaching, us what they've learned through being part of this project. And it is beautiful. So this is our team. To date, we are, Ani Elka's leading the product side, and then I'm leading more the organization development side. And We have people that have raised their hands to be part of this just because they feel passionate about the issue. And they also want to be part of something that's a startup and can be something that they can personally benefit from. So everybody on here sees themselves as Chava and are really committed to its development, but they also see themselves as getting something of significant value from being a part of this project. So if there's interest in volunteering, we're always looking for people with a skill to share. It's along a huge range from health to organization to product to whatever people's skill sets. And if they see a thing that they could say, oh, I could see how they could benefit from my understanding or my expertise in this area, that's perfect for us. And then we really build our team around everybody. We've learned to run a very strong virtual team, and our meetings and our collaboration is, I think, I'm very proud of what we've been able to really put together that really makes it meaningful for the volunteer, but also makes the contribution to Chava just essential. So that's our story.
That's really impressive. I have a bunch of questions.
Oh, good.
Well, first of all, I'm wondering how you got into this. I mean, you're the founder.
Yeah.
What inspired you? It's amazing work and so important.
It's a great story, Susan.
Yeah.
Love to hear it.
Yeah, so I was a corporate executive. I spent 25 years as the chief marketing officer in financial services and healthcare. And I got to a point, my kids were moving off to college, and I was just like, I just got to a point where I couldn't keep pushing that boulder up the hill anymore and creating shareholder value and then having it come running back at me. So I just really wanted to take the skills I'd been building and felt proud of and apply it to an issue that was more meaningful and where I could create some social value. So I went back and got a master's in social entrepreneurship at Pepperdine. And through that, I was connected to Jonathan Butcher, who is one of the other co-founders who had also gone through the program. And he was now in Nicaragua working in community development. And he connected me to Anielka. So with the three of us, it's Ani's vision. Ani's vision is the heart and soul of the Lily Project. And but I could do things I knew to create the resources and the strategy to make it happen. So the three of us really have collaborated over the last 7 years and built Lily into what it is, and now Chava into what it will be. So it's
fantastic.
Yeah, it's
fantastic.
It's wonderful. It's
so, and my next question is with the taboos coming from the community around talking about sex education and sexual health and girls' menstruation and all of that. What do you get a lot of pushback, and how do you deal with the pushback?
We've been, because of the Ani's really understanding the culture we're working in, we've worked very hard to create partnerships with the community directly. So we've gone into hundreds and hundreds of rural communities, and we work with, in order to do our work, we work with sometimes the church, whoever the local leaders are. We really work hard to build the right partnership. We have pushback at the individual level when men don't want their wives to get a pap smear, for instance, because they don't want somebody else touching their wives, or because they think if she's got HPV, then they're blaming him. I mean, there's a lot of things like that. We've had women sneak in to come see us type of thing, but for the most part, the community itself has been very accepting. If there's any pushback, it's at the individual level.
Interesting.
Yes, and actually the schools, we go into a lot of schools and do education, and they're very happy to have us be there. It's just they don't have the resources or the expertise. So they don't understand. One of my favorite stories is like, this isn't favorite from a good thing, but it's just freaked me out that we had women come in who may have 3 or 4 babies, three or four children, and they didn't understand the relationship between their menstrual cycle and fertility. So they didn't
Wow.
see themselves, and actually they didn't even realize they had a cycle as much as they thought they had a disease. So
Wow.
yeah, the level of taboo or misunderstanding is just tremendous. And just even when you start to trigger in a little bit of knowledge, yeah, it makes a huge difference to these people.
And do you think this is scalable to other countries besides Nicaragua? And would you need then a partner who was particularly embedded in those other cultures?
Yes, well, our goal is to be across Latin America. And actually, we're going to co-launch it in Mexico and in Nicaragua. Obviously, Mexico is the biggest country in Latin America, that if we can impact that, or this part of Latin America, that if we can impact that market. But the way we're envisioning our scaling is to partner with local providers and NGOs, and actually white label Chava. So they're actually going to kind of own it in their community. So we'll be the platform, but they will have the ability to take it to people in their communities, and it will come from them, which will create a level of acceptance pretty quickly. So our model's all around collaboration. We're also planning to collaborate with brands who are trying to reach these audiences as well, because we are, 15 to 24-year-old young females is a very high potential brand market for many brands that are selling Kotex, things like that.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they still are consumers.
Yeah.
They also like to shop.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. What about places not Latin America? Like you mentioned, Pakistan. Wouldn't it be amazing to scale into Pakistan?
Yeah, the reason we got picked by that organization, first off, was that they took projects out to their team to say, do you want to work on this project? Because they have volunteer time in their own development group. And all the young women in their team said, yes, I want to work on it, because they know it's a problem in their country. So we're having sidebar conversations with people in India and Pakistan and others that see this as once the platform's built, there's no reason it can't scale.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, it's cool. So
really wonderful.
We're very, yes, we're very pleased and hopeful, and now starting to be able to start, bringing more people on to create more help. So it's good.
Amazing. Thank you, Susan, so much. It has been such a pleasure to be sitting with you these last 3 sessions. And thank you, Julie, for joining. I think at this time we can go back to the networking
great.
room so that we can meet with other organizations and meet with other